Hi, hello, good day everyone. So today we will be discussing Marxist criticism and how it can be applied to the novel 1984 by George Orwell. So Marxist criticism is a literary approach that examines how text reflects social, political, and economic conditions, especially in focusing on issues of power inequality and class struggle. In this presentation, we will be explaining the key proponents of Marxist theory and its main ideas and how these ideas are reflected in 1984 by George Orwell. To better understand Marxist criticism, we must first look at its proponents. So first is Karl Marx. So he was a 19th century German philosopher that became a part of the Young Hegelians and later the Communist League. So he believed that society is divided into two main classes: the bourgeoisie or the ruling class, and the proletariat or the working class, the lower class. So according to Marx, the conflict between these classes known as class struggle, and it's driving the force of history. So another important figure is Friedrich Engels, who worked closely with Marx. So they are best friends. So Engels supported Marx financially and intellectually and helped develop and spread Marxist ideas. Well, these are also the other thinkers that also contributed the development of Marxist criticism. So George Lucas, who focused on how literature reflects social reality, while Antonio Gramsci introduced the concept of cultural hegemony, which explains power by controlling culture and influencing people's beliefs. Then Louis Althusser emphasized the role of ideology, or the system of ideas that shape how people think and behave. Then last is Terry Eagleton applied Marxist ideas to modern literacy analysis, showing how literature is always connected to the power and social structures. So what is Marxist criticism? It is a social, political, and economic philosophy named after the 19th century German philosopher and economist Karl Marx. So, Marxist criticism is a social, political, and economic approach to analyzing literature. It focuses on how text reveals conflict between social classes and how power is distributed in society. This approach assumes that literature is not created in isolation. Instead, it is influenced by the economic system in which the author lives. For example, stories may reflect inequality, poverty, or privilege, depending on the social condition of the time. In short, Marxist criticism helps us understand how literature reflects real-world issues such as class struggle and oppression.
Good day, everyone. So now let us proceed to the three key concepts of Marxist criticism, starting with the class struggle. So when we say class struggle, this refers to a conflict between different social classes, especially those who hold power and those who are oppressed. Let's say, for an example class, in many workplaces, there can be a conflict between the company owner and its workers, in where there can be a situation that the company workers may demand higher salary while the company owner may try to reduce costs to gain more profit. So in this example class, you will clearly see that there is a conflict between two different social classes, which is the company owner and its workers. So the class struggle basically means that there is a conflict between different social classes. So that is class struggle. Okay. Now moving on to the second concept, which is the alienation of the individual under capitalism. So this means, class, that some people may sometimes feel disconnected from their work, from other people, or even from themselves. And one of the common reasons why this happens is because the work may try to focus more on gaining profit rather than personal fulfillment. Let's say, for an example, class, a factory worker who repeats the same tasks every day may feel somewhat disconnected or feel that their work has no personal meaning at all. And one of the common reasons, class, why people feel disconnected from their work is because people nowadays often work not because they enjoy doing their work, but because of the sueldo, or the money that they can earn from doing it. Right? So that is one of the common reasons why people feel disconnected from their work class. And then the third key concept is the relationship between a society's economic base and its cultural superstructure. So this idea class suggests that society's economic system can influence its community, its environment, its social structures, its institutions. So this basically explains how a society's economic system can influence its environment. Okay, let's say, for an example, class, a technology-based economy that encourages education to teach more digital or more tech skills to students. So this example shows how the economic system can influence education. So that is the third key concept is all about. Okay, so now, since we are done with the three key concepts, let's move on to the author, or the author behind the novel 1984. And that leads us to George Orwell. So in this part class, I will just give you a quick, overview of who is George Orwell. Okay, so George Orwell, he is one of the most, important author of the 20th century, and his works often focuses on the relationship between the individuals and the society, especially how politics and power can influence or can affect people's lives, right? And according to his background class, Orwell was part of the Indian Imperial Police, where he witnessed the colonial rule himself, and later on he also fought in the Spanish Civil War during the 1930s. So because of these experiences class, many of Orwell's novels reflects political and social realities, just like, for example, his two most famous works, which is the Animal Farm and the 1984, which both discusses issues such as the inequalities between different social classes and the importance of the personal and political freedom. So that is it for the quick overview of who is George Orwell.
And now let's have the summary of the story. So the summary of the story in 1984, it is a dystopian novel written by George Orwell and first published in 1948. So dystopian meaning it imagines a frightening future where ang lahang government can total control over sa kinabuhi sa katao. And the story happens in a country called Oceania, so where the government kay known as the party who controls everything of informations man, history, language, and even people thought. So the party is led by a mysterious figure called Big Brother. So kanis Big Brother nagrepresent ni siya og absolute power and constant surveillance, so citizens are always watched through telescreens. So even ang ilang facial expressions and small actions can be considered as a crime. And the main character is si Winston Smith, who works at the Ministry of Truth. So his job is to write historical records kung sa may pangsulti sa government or kung sa may sulti sa party. So this means that government can change the past and make people believe in their lies. So in this society, people lived in fear and strict control. So every day begins with an event called to minisate. So during this time, ang citizens must watch propaganda videos and express hatred towards sa kontra sa government. So this practice keeps people angry, emotional, and loyal to the government. So children are also taught to spy on their parents and report any suspicious behavior to the authorities. So families cannot fully trust each other because loyalty to the party is more important to the loyalty for the family. So living conditions are also very poor because many citizens experiencing food shortage, poor housing, limited freedom, and constant propaganda. And because of this, people gradually lost their individuality and personal identity. So in simple terms, the government uses fear, propaganda, and surveillance to control society. So as the novel unfolds, makita nato nga si Winston Smith is one na day nalipay sa iyang trabaho, although he pretend nga ginaobey ang government in public, but deep inside ganahan siya og truth, freedom, and real human connections. And he began a small rebellion by writing his thoughts in a secret diary, which is illegal na sa lang society because independent thinking is considered as a crime. And later on, si Winston na-meet niya si Julia. Si Julia po kay hate po niya ang party. So they began a romantic relationship which is forbidden po sa lang society because the party wants to control people's emotions and relationship. So through their relation, Winston feels hope for a better and more meaningful life. So however, rebelling against the party is extremely dangerous. Eventually, Winston and Julia kay betrayed and arrested sa otoridad, showing how powerful and oppressive the system really is. So Winston represents as a person who wants freedom and truth in a controlled society. And that's all the summary of the story. And now let's move to the application using Marxist criticism. So class struggle. Marxist criticism focuses on the social classes and power. In 1984, the society is divided into three main classes, which is inner party, outer party, and proles. So maguna ta sa inner party. So the inner party is the ruling elite who have the most power and privileges, while the outer party is the government workers like Parani Winston who enforce the party's rule. While ang proles kay it is a working class who lived in poverty but make up the most of the populations. So the inner party controls wealth, knowledge, and power, while the prole remain poor and uneducated. So the party keeps the proles distracted and entertainment and small freedoms so that they will not question the system. So Marxist interpretations, this shows how the upper class maintains power by controlling the lower class. So alienations of the individual. So another important of Marxist idea is alienations, which means ang people become separated of their true selves. Mao na to ang gradually nga malus ang ilang identity, ang ilang individuality. So they become separated sa ilang tinod nga na feel and relationships because of the system nga ilang gipuy-an. So Winston experiences alienations in several ways. He cannot express his true thoughts, he cannot trust anyone, he cannot form genuine relationship freely. So the party even controls language through a system called a newspeak, so which reduces vocabulary, so people cannot even think rebellious ideas. So the system makes people feel empty, isolated, and powerless. Economic base and cultural superstructure. So Marxist theory says society has two parts, and first is ang economic base. It is how wealth, labor, and productions are being controlled, while ang cultural superstructure, it is the ideas, beliefs, educations, media, and culture that support the system. So in 1984, the party controls both ang economic control, jobs, productions, and distribution of resources, while ang cultural control is the history, media, language, and education. So by controlling what people know and believe, the party ensures that the citizens accept the systems without questioning it. So the government controls both money and ideas to stay in power. So in conclusions, using Marxist criticisms, we can see that 1984 is not only a dystopian story, but also a critic of social inequality and oppressive power systems. So the novel warns readers that when governments control informations, economic power, media, and culture, they can manipulate society and maintain dominance over the people. So the story reminds us that freedom, truth, and critical thinking are very important in any society. So I think that's all. Thank you.